All right, I think that's everything. And then, again, more than enough waffle from me this morning. Our first talk in this room is Max Dittmar. There is a snake in my Explorer. I won't give away the subtitle in case you can't read it, because that apparently was a secret. And I think, Max,
Cool.
take it away. Guys, recording going? Sorted. Thank you.
Cool.
That's great.
Awesome. Can you hear me? Loud and clear. Cool. Welcome, everybody, to morning session. As you've heard, my name is Max Dittmar. So a little bit about me. I'm an electronic engineer working as a software engineer at a pyrometallurgical company. The irony is not lost on me, but Python is my home language. My colleague sitting here in front, we've come a while, so we do everything in Python. We sleep, eat, and breathe Python. If I can't do it in Python, then why do it? Then, yeah, you'll see from this talk as well that I am a future thinker or a dreamer or a optimist. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about me. I studied electronic engineering, working in software in the pyrometallurgy industry. You might wonder, what is that? It's a fancy word. So the company that I work for is Xmente Technologies. We think a lot. So Xmente means out of the mind. Some people say we are out of our mind, but that just means there's a lot of thinking involved in what we do, because we are a consulting firm and our clients are in the mining and manufacturing industry. So, and we are a small company, about 16 people, but we want to give the big hits. Yeah, so like I said, we are in pyrometallurgy. You can deduce from the name that if it burns and melts, we want to know about it. That gets all of the other engineers excited, maybe not me. If something in electronics burns or melts, that's a problem. And wasn't intended. For them, it's intended. So yeah, as Xmente, we, like I said, consult with big companies, how they can improve processes. Obviously, process level information systems is a thing. So just to give you some context, that is where I find myself doing front end at a metallurgy company. So you heard the title, there is a snake in my Explorer. So just a brief outline. I think this is also a thinking pattern or a thinking framework that, if you know Simon Sinek, start with why. Even our CEO always asks, what is the purpose, why? So I'll talk about why is this relevant, snakes in our explorers, how does it work, and what can it be applied to? So let's get into it. Why are there snakes in our explorers? Wait. We'll get to that first. But first, I think as engineers, as developers, we aim to assist people and enable them with the tools that we create to extract clarity from chaos and uncertainty. So for us in our context, this would be our clients, our team. So think of your context. Who is it that is using your tools and how are you enabling them? I enjoyed what Gordon said yesterday, or his talk yesterday, just on data science. I want to show you this illustration. If we think about data and collecting data, preparing the data, visualizing it, in the end it should tell a story. The reason why I'm saying this is, let's go back, is if we want to enable people with data, they need to understand, they need to be able to follow the story that you're telling. And how do we do that? And why do we do that? So when we extract data, we can make decisions, we can understand the world around us a bit better. There's a lot of things. Referred to Gordon's talk yesterday, just how to make it practical. It's even, if I understand the data that I'm using with or analyzing or processing better, it's applicable to everyone. In South Africa currently, we are 61 million people. So yeah, it's applicable to really everyone. So why can't we make it more accessible? Just some stats. These are estimates. So there's about 200,000, give or take, developers in South Africa. That's a rough estimation. There might be less. According to OfferZen, the State of the Developer Nation report of 2022, only 4% of those identified as data scientists or data engineers or worked in that field. So that's quite a small percentage of the 61 million people in South Africa. And then on the other side, this is from EXA, there's about 60,000 just engineers in South Africa. The ratio is 1 engineer for every 3,100 people. In more developed countries, that's 10 times higher, about 1 to 300. Like I said, we are 61 million people in South Africa. And then just another comment, not all engineers are data scientists or software developers. It's true. Don't know about you. Yeah, so just those figures, and you'll see why I talk about those figures. The takeaway there is we have a shortage of people that can take data, clean it up, as Gordon showed us yesterday, just making something useful out of that data. So yeah, so much data, so little time, and people want to see their data. How can we make it easy? And this is where we get back to snakes in our explorers. So potentially, you'll see there's an asterisk. We have about 48 million data scientists in South Africa, and it comes with a tail. The reason why I say that is the web penetration on mobile devices in South Africa is about 78%. So that means 78% do have access to a browser, to a modern browser, probably on an Android device or whatever mobile device. Then this is the right thing to say at a PyCon, is Python is the most popular programming language in the world, believe it or not. So how can we bring those two together? So yes, we do need snakes in our explorer, but which snake will do the job? And this is where we get into pyscript. Can I have a drum roll? Cue the drum roll. So just a little bit, what is pyscript? Just a brief overview. So it is the power of Python compiling in your web browser or on your browser, a modern internet browser, sorry, Internet Explorer, you're not relevant anymore. So why is this powerful? It combines Python and the web stack, and they can actually talk with one another. So you may ask, I see you clamoring, how is this possible? How does pyscript do this? It has some friends that it drags along the way. So I don't know if who of you have heard about WebAssembly. Obviously, you know CPython and Cython, and pyodide is mainly the star of the show. So you don't need to read. This is a lot of information. I'll just quickly go over it. So WebAssembly basically takes instruction sets and compiles it for the web. If you don't know this, your browser is effectively running a little virtual machine on your system. So WebAssembly targets that machine. Then obviously we have CPython and Cython. So pyodide is a port of CPython for WebAssembly. So that means you can install pip packages, run Python things. If you start up pyodide, you effectively get a Python terminal or a Python compiler at your fingertips. And then what pyscript does is it orchestrates all of this, builds a framework to interface and to make it accessible in HTML and allows you to interact with JavaScript. So it can get quite crazy. So this is just a brief overview so that you know what I'm talking about. You'll see WebAssembly at the bottom. then pyodide doing the translation and compilation, and then pyscript on top. Just making everything accessible to those web developers so that they know what this is. So how does pyscript do this? There are a few tags that from release that you can use. I've listed a few and we'll go through them just now. So yeah, this makes a formidable team to make Python and the web stack talk to each other. And let's go into the what. We've talked about the how. So this is just a very basic example. I don't know if you can see. You just include the links to your style sheet and the pyscript JS script. And in the pyscript tag, believe it or not, there's a matplotlib plot running. And it runs locally on your machine. What's cool about this is if you don't need to host it necessarily. Yes, there are some quirks here and there that you do need a hosted web server to run your pyscript file or your HTML file. But this, if you take that file, double click it, it runs. And you have Python in the browser. Woo! Can you believe it? Another one that might be familiar to you, there's a pyrepl tag. So again, effectively you can remove the pyscript tag, just put pyrepl and start coding, and boom, it compiles in the browser and you get, as you would in Jupyter Notebook or wherever you want your REPL served, you can commit Python. So just what I've found so far whilst playing with this is that external script files for dependencies and code formatting are winners, because if you have an HTML formatter, it just takes your your Python code and it doesn't look so nice afterwards. I'm sure they're working on that. So this is the better way. Just include the Py file, and this is where the quirk comes in. If you have an external file, you're gonna run into cause errors and everything. So the browser's like, what are you doing? You're trying to include a file. That's when you need to serve it. But effectively, you can, if you don't do that, you can just run the HTML file, open it in your browser, and it should run. Then we were talking about dependencies. You use the pyenv tag just to set up your environment. So I'll show you an example just now, but that is the env tag from that file. I included matplotlib, pandas, plotly, and then I also include a file hosted on the server that has some data in it. So this is cool, and I'll show you it in action just now. We open that CSV file in Python, but the graph is in JavaScript. So that's what pyscript enables us to do, is the callbacks and event handlers and everything from Python, JavaScript, they are talking to each other actually. So that makes it really, really cool. Just quickly want to show. So here I have an interactive graph. That's what I titled it. I'll quickly send it to that screen. Don't select everything. Okay. So this is just Google searches in South Africa over the last 5 years per week. Python, this is the relative percentage. Python is quite popular. As you said, it's the most popular one in the world. It pops up in searches. Java is not so popular, and it's going down. And then, unfortunately, like, I'm really passionate about Rust and what's happening there, but people in South Africa apparently not, because the relative percentage is about 3% of popularity. So yeah, this just shows you that the interaction, it's running in your browser. That's a Plotly graph that's talking to the Python in your browser. Interesting to note, the searches pop off or go down over the holidays, so people are probably not asking Stack Overflow questions or stuff like that over the holidays, which makes sense. Then, so you can even go as far, in that slide I showed you, you can define widgets. So it's just, yeah, I can go into the details, but Python and JavaScript are getting in bed with each other and they're just doing all the things. I just want to show you this example. As you'll see, for those Python widgets, the input box and the button, I just define those events and it does what it needs to. Just quickly bring it back up. Cool. Give PyCon talk. That's on my to-do list, apparently. Okay, so what can this be applied to? Like I said, we are in the pyrometallurgy context. Why does this matter? Currently, some of our engineers use the visualization toolkit. A company called Kitware developed it, just an open source visualization tool. It was originally written in C#, there's a JS version, and you can do it in Python. So what they use it for is to show predicted behavior inside a furnace. It's 1,700 degrees Celsius. You don't want to shove your head in there. You can. And presently, some of our engineers use hosted dashboards like Streamlit. And Stefan and I know, my colleague here in front, we've had some issues with those. I just want to quickly show you. It's technically not running, very dependent on pyscript. Just get the corral the Safari to do what I want. But the opportunities are effectively endless. Because this is the JS library compiling and rendering this cone. It's a new type of furnace. It's a cone furnace. But in reality, you can do what you can do in Python. You can connect to this JS library and do crazy things. So I think there's definitely opportunity here. Yeah, so when we want to get practical, I want to find my cursor again. Well, let's say that for a second. Why does this matter? And we'll get to why does this matter is the barrier to entry for pyscript is quite low. If you can open an HTML file, you can probably do pyscript or run Python in your browser, and that's powerful. If you look at what Gordon showed us yesterday, it's quite powerful. Just on our context, if we use hosted dashboards, you have limited access. Yeah, there was some issues where latency was an issue. All of that, if we were to consider pyscript, that wouldn't be a problem because it's rendered locally, it's executed locally. So you just send your info and your data files over and it renders locally. Yeah, so pyscript is effectively allowing you to decide what is better. If I want to compare streamlit with pyscript, it all comes down to what is your skill level and the time you have, what is needed, and what do you want to show your client or the person that you want to enable with this data set. I quickly want to show you the last example. It's a comparison. You'll probably, if you're into data science, you'll probably would have seen it somewhere. So this is a data set from Uber. It's difficult to, there we go. So I'm going to open both of them. So this is the streamlit example. It just illustrates taxi pickups in New York every hour for a certain amount of time. Let's see if it runs. Come on, streamlit, you can do it. Who's going to win? There we go. See, stuff like that. It's cool. So there we have it. I can select the hour of pickup. Okay, streamlit. When demos don't go the way you want, eh? But this is actually an example from pyscript site. You can actually go have a look at it. There we go. So that it's that same data set rendering locally. I can run it. I'll zoom in a bit. Versus this where it's streaming all of this data. Like I said, you need to pick your poison, what makes sense given what you want to achieve. Cool. Yeah, so are you guys excited? Because I'm really excited. This is just to show you what is possible running Python in the browser. Just go there. Cool. So I'll end off with this. PyScript's goal, and I'll refer you also to Peter Wang's keynote at PyCon US earlier this year, where he unveiled PyScript. PyScript as the goal to make data science and just Python, the power of Python, accessible to the 99%. Because like I showed you at the beginning, it's 0.0001% about of us that are capable with the tools, but how do we make it available to everybody? So it's easy for anyone to get into it. Like I said, play with it. It's cool. Python running in your browser. If we can have JavaScript on the server, we can have Python in our browser. Yeah, so these were just a few examples. Apply it to anything. It can be applied to anything for anyone. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Baie dankie, Max.
We'll
My
see you.
apologies. I've become so Italian. I immediately assumed it was Max. You're well ahead of time, Max.
Okay.
Did you leave anything out? Any other things you want to show, or otherwise
No.
we'll open for questions.
You can open for questions.
Let me just check. There weren't any. There were some comments on the live stream. Okay. Do we have any questions from the floor? Anyone? Oh, quite a few. Well, I'll start here because you're closer.
Hi, I'm Mathieu from Sarau. Now I enjoyed this, and I've heard of WebAssembly before, and the examples that I've seen seemed a little bit complicated, and this looks like it might be simpler and easier. I saw that you listed a few examples there, but I was just wondering if you have a recommendation where to look at to kind of get to grips with this more easily. Now, for example, if it's not very clear, what exactly do you need to install, and like there's some basic simple stuff to play with to kick off with.
Yeah, it's actually, Matteo, it's as easy as just linking to that JS file. So if you want to do it locally or remotely, you have to install nothing. That's how cool it is. And that's why also it possibly makes it accessible to the 99. I don't need to install, or what is Python? I can just open an HTML file, copy paste if I really want to. So there are some examples on pyscript.net. Like I said, it's actually magic. When you open the HTML file, the pyscript tag executes. So nothing that you need to install. You just need to have a browser. Hopefully you have that. Yeah, it doesn't, sorry. Yeah, because it's Chromium based. It's a modern browser, apparently.
Actually, two questions. I saw you've got dependencies there. Do you have the ability to pin them as well?
To pin them?
To specific versions?
I think you do. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm quite sure because, so just for clarity, there's a set of about 50 pre-compiled pip packages that pyodide built. You can even include one that they haven't built yet. If it has a wheel file, I learned the difference between what is a wheel file and what is not, but if it has a wheel file, it will work.
Cool. And then the interaction, do you feed whatever Python gives you to the JavaScript side and then use the JavaScript interactive things to, read from the text box or look at the slider, that type of thing?
The same way almost in jQuery, where you look at the tags, you do the same thing. There's a JS object in your Python, and almost the same way around. So they just refer to each other, and then they interact. So yeah, it's quite cool what it can do.
Cool, thanks.
Any further questions? Anybody got anything else over there?
Thanks. So, yeah. So I just wanted to ask about the REPL. Can you only use the normal REPL, or can you also use something like IPython using pyscript?
I'm not exactly sure, but it's good you ask that because you're gonna go find out. Like I said, it's a wonderful thing that the people at Anaconda or whatever that they've done is just writing that abstraction layer. So theoretically, there's numerous things that you can go and try. So I'm not sure, but I think it's definitely something that you can go investigate.
Thank you. If I can just interject, you have got a couple of online comments, but it's mainly people saying things like, why did I not know about this before? And this is brilliant. Thank you very much. So, no, I must agree with him. PyScript it looks like magic, and it's brilliant. And a couple of other people saying thank you for sharing, etc. That said, there is still quite a bit of time in the room. Has anybody else got anything else? It's an interesting topic. I'm sure there are questions.
Maybe this is another question. Is there any obvious limitation, for example, like memory allocation limits that's maybe imposed on this? If you, for example, wanted to use almost all of the computer's memory, is there going to be like a point where, PyScript bombs out before your computer bombs out?
The browser should manage that, because from what I understand, that the target that WebAssembly is targeting is limited to how much resources it can use. So probably the browser would just die or crash, or that tab would crash. I know a lot of browsers like isolate even the tab. So there are limits, but theoretically you can even run neural nets in this, because scikit-learn is one of the pre-compiled packages. But yeah, there are obviously limits to what you can do.
Yeah, if I could chip in, my understanding there is basically you're limited to whatever the browser will let JavaScript do.
Yes.
So most browsers, as you say, are per tab, per resource based. I mean, you could change that in your system if you want to, but out the box, you'll get whatever the browser will let JavaScript do, basically. Are there any further questions? Anybody got anything else other than a burning desire to go forth and write some PyScript now and have Python in your browser? And
Yes.
I'd ask you, please
Goal
don't.
achieved.
No, the goal achieved, but please don't do that now.
No.
If you'd be so kind as to stay for the rest of the day, that would be great. Then you can go write some PyScript. That's great.
Maybe just some. I'm involved in an NGO where we go into disadvantaged communities and just engage with them and tutor them with maths and science and English. And something like this got me thinking, if I don't need to do fancy things, if they have a web browser in front of them, I can show them a bit of, or help them do a little bit of Python. So I'm glad that you guys are inspired. I think the power of this is, it's quite powerful. The magic that we can do, and like I said at the beginning, South Africa needs data scientists. So if the barrier to entry can be lower, if all you need is a browser and Google to find out what I want to do with, because as we all know, Python can do a lot of things, but if I can do that in a browser without needing to install things, that makes it a bit closer. We're inching closer to make it accessible to the 99, instead of focusing on the 1% that knows what a C Python compiler is. Cool. Anything else?
Right. Anybody else? Anything further? Otherwise, I think we'll call it there. Thank you. Thank you, Mux. That was absolutely brilliant. I've been looking for an excuse basically to do something. I was first looking for an excuse to do something useful with PyScript. I've given up on that. I'm just looking for an excuse to play with the thing. Thank you, Mux. That was
Cool.
brilliant.
Only a
Thank you.
pleasure. Awesome.